Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie House of David 2025, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. House of David 2025 is a cinematic journey that transports audiences to the ancient landscapes of 1000 BC Israel, weaving a tale of faith, power, and destiny. Directed by Jon Erwin, this film offers a fresh perspective on the legendary figure of David, exploring his transformation from a humble shepherd to the anointed king of Israel. The narrative delves deep into themes of divine purpose, leadership, and the complexities of human nature, presenting a story that resonates across time. The film introduces us to David, portrayed by Michael Iskander, a young shepherd tending his father's flocks in the hills of Bethlehem. Despite his modest beginnings and being marginalized within his own family, David's life takes an unexpected turn when the prophet Samuel, played by Stephen Lang, arrives with a divine message. Samuel, acting on God's command, anoints David as the future king of Israel, setting him on a path fraught with challenges and monumental decisions. At this time, King Saul, depicted by Suliman, is grappling with the loss of God's favor due to his disobedience. His descent into madness and paranoia creates a power vacuum and sets the stage for political intrigue and conflict. Saul's actions not only endanger his reign but also strain his relationships with those closest to him, including his children and loyal subjects. David's journey is marked by trials that test his faith and resilience. From confronting wild beasts threatening his flock to facing the towering Philistine warrior Goliath, portrayed by Martin Ford, David's courage and reliance on divine guidance become evident. His victory over Goliath not only serves as a testament to his faith but also propels him into the national spotlight, earning him admiration and envy in equal measure. As David rises in prominence, he navigates complex relationships within Saul's court. His deep friendship with Jonathan, Saul's son, and his burgeoning affection for Michal, Saul's daughter, add layers of personal conflict and political tension. These relationships are tested as Saul's jealousy and fear of losing his throne drive him to view David as a threat, leading to attempts on David's life and forcing him into exile. The film masterfully portrays the dichotomy between Saul's decline and David's ascent, highlighting the consequences of pride and the virtues of humility. It delves into the moral and ethical dilemmas faced by both leaders, offering viewers a nuanced understanding of their characters. The narrative also explores the concept of divine selection and the burdens that come with it, as David grapples with his destiny and the expectations placed upon him. Visually, House of David captivates with its authentic depiction of ancient Israel. Filmed in various locations, including Greece and Calgary, Alberta, the cinematography brings to life the rugged landscapes and historical settings, immersing viewers in the time period. The attention to detail in set design and costumes enhances the storytelling, providing a rich backdrop for the unfolding drama. The film's score, composed by Kevin Kiner along with his children, Sean and Deanna Kiner, blends traditional Middle Eastern instrumentation with contemporary orchestral elements, aligning with the historical setting while appealing to modern audiences. This musical accompaniment enriches the emotional depth of the narrative, underscoring pivotal moments and character developments. House of David not only recounts a historical tale but also presents timeless themes of faith, leadership, and the human condition. It invites audiences to reflect on the complexities of destiny and the moral choices that define us. Whether you're familiar with the biblical account or new to the story, this film offers a compelling and thought-provoking experience that resonates with contemporary viewers. If you're intrigued by epic tales of courage and faith, House of David is a must-watch. Its rich storytelling, combined with stellar performances and breathtaking visuals, makes it a standout film of 2025. Don't miss the opportunity to witness this remarkable portrayal of one of history's most iconic figures. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive into House of David. If you enjoyed this analysis, please give the video a thumbs up. And for more insightful content on the latest films, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming reviews and discussions. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie, so feel free to share your comments below. Until next time, happy viewing. The wind moves over the hills of Bethlehem, rustling through the dry grass as a young boy watches over his flock. His name is David, the youngest of 8 brothers, overlooked by many, yet destined for something far greater than he can comprehend. He has spent his life among the sheep, learning patience, learning vigilance, learning to listen, not just to the land, but to something beyond it. Far away, beyond these quiet pastures, Israel is restless. King Saul, once chosen by God, now wrestles with the weight of his own failings. His victories in battle have not brought him peace. Instead, they have burdened him with doubt, with the creeping fear that power is slipping from his grasp. He was once a warrior with God's favor, but disobedience has cost him everything. And now, though his throne still stands, his reign is already ending. The prophet Samuel, an old man whose voice has guided Israel for years, receives a message. God has chosen another king, one not yet seated on a throne, not yet clad in armor, not yet known beyond his own family. Samuel is commanded to go to Bethlehem, to the house of Jesse, to anoint the one who has been chosen. He arrives in secret, knowing that Saul's wrath would be swift if he knew another had been selected to replace him. Jesse gathers his sons before Samuel, strong men with the look of warriors, each one standing tall in the hope that he is the one chosen by God. But Samuel, despite their stature, shakes his head. One by one, they pass before him, but the voice that speaks to him says no. There is another, the youngest, the boy tending the sheep. David is summoned, and when he stands before the prophet, he is not what anyone expected. He is small, unassuming, barely old enough to be considered a man. Yet, when Samuel looks at him, he knows. This is the one. The anointing is quiet, done in secrecy, with only his family to witness. Oil is poured over his head, and in that moment, David feels something stir within him, something that will shape the course of his life. He returns to his sheep, the same boy he was before, yet something is different. He carries a weight he does not yet understand, a destiny that feels too large for him. But the days pass, and the world does not stop moving. Meanwhile, in King Saul's court, the king grows tormented. He cannot sleep. A darkness follows him, a deep and unshakable unrest that makes him lash out at those around him. His advisers suggest music, something to calm his troubled spirit. And so, they seek a musician, someone whose melodies can soothe even the most broken of souls. David, known for his skill with the harp, is summoned. He enters the palace for the first time, standing before the man he has secretly been chosen to replace. But there is no arrogance in him, no hunger for the throne. He plays his harp, and Saul's burden eases. The music reaches the depths of the king's troubled heart, and for a moment the shadows retreat. David remains in Saul's court, not as a rival, but as a servant, watching the weight of leadership from the inside. He sees the fear in Saul's eyes, the insecurity that rules him. He sees the cracks in the throne long before they break. But war does not wait for a king's troubles. The Philistines, Israel's longtime enemies, gather their forces. They send forth their greatest warrior, a giant of a man named Goliath, clad in bronze armor that glints beneath the sun. He stands before the armies of Israel and mocks them, challenges them to send a single man to face him in combat. If their champion can defeat him, the Philistines will surrender. If not, Israel will serve them. But no one steps forward. Day after day, Goliath's voice thunders across the valley. His taunts ring in the ears of Saul and his soldiers, his presence a towering reminder of their fear. No one dares to fight him. Even Saul, the tallest among his people, remains in his tent, knowing that a fight against the giant is one he cannot win. David's brothers are among the soldiers, and his father sends him to bring them food, unaware that this errand will change everything. When David arrives at the battlefield, he hears the challenge for himself. He sees the terror in the soldiers' faces, sees the way Goliath has already won, not with his sword, but with fear. But David does not feel that fear. To him, Goliath is not invincible. He is not an untouchable force. He is simply another obstacle, another predator like the lions and bears that have threatened his flock. The difference is that David knows something the others have forgotten. Strength does not come from size. It does not come from armor, from weapons, from fear. It comes from faith. He steps forward, a shepherd boy standing before a king, and offers to fight. The room is silent. Laughter rises from the soldiers, from David's own brothers. But Saul does not laugh. He sees something in the boy's eyes, something reckless, something unbreakable. He tries to give David his own armor, his own sword, but they do not fit. David shakes his head. He does not need them. All he needs is his sling. The battlefield is vast, the sky wide and open above them. David steps forward as Goliath sneers, as the Philistines laugh at the sight of a boy standing where warriors have refused to go. Goliath lifts his spear, towering over David like a shadow stretching across the ground. But David does not hesitate. His hand moves swiftly, his sling whirling in the air. A single stone flies through the space between them, cutting through the laughter, through the doubt, through the fear. It strikes Goliath's forehead, and the giant staggers. Then he falls. Silence. The Philistines watch in disbelief as their champion crashes to the ground, his massive frame lying still in the dust. David steps forward, lifting Goliath's own sword, and with one final strike, the giant is no more. The battlefield erupts. The Philistines flee, their confidence shattered. The soldiers of Israel, once paralyzed by fear, now charge after them, emboldened by the boy who stood when no one else would. David, still holding Goliath's sword, does not celebrate. He does not revel in victory. He simply stands, knowing that nothing will ever be the same again. He returns to Saul's court, no longer just a shepherd or a musician. He is now a warrior, a name whispered across Israel, a figure that cannot be ignored. The people cheer for him, sing his praises, and in their voices, Saul hears something else, something dangerous. He hears the beginning of his own end. The echoes of battle still linger in the air long after Goliath's fall. David, once a nameless shepherd, is now a hero, his name whispered throughout Israel, sung in the streets, celebrated in the halls of power. But in victory, he has made an enemy far more dangerous than the giant he struck down. The king himself is watching, and in Saul's eyes, admiration turns to suspicion, and suspicion to fear. At first, Saul welcomes David with open arms. The young warrior becomes a fixture in the royal court, beloved by the people, honored among soldiers. He is given command over armies, leading them to triumph after triumph. Each victory, however, drives a deeper wedge between Saul and his would-be successor. The people's songs grow louder, their praises of David eclipsing those of the king. Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. The words burn in Saul's mind, a slow poison seeping into his heart. He watches David with narrowed eyes, sees the way his men rally behind him, sees the way even his own children love him. Jonathan, his son, who should inherit his throne, and Michael, his daughter, who has fallen for David. Jealousy takes root. Saul begins to unravel, his mind a battlefield of its own. The Spirit of God has left him, and in its place, darkness grows. His paranoia deepens. He sees David not as a servant, not as a warrior in his name, but as a threat. Then, one night, in the flickering light of the torches, Saul throws his spear. Jealousy takes root. Saul begins to unravel, his mind a battlefield of its own. The Spirit of God has left him, and in its place, darkness grows. His paranoia deepens. He sees David not as a servant, not as a warrior in his name, but as a threat. Then, one night, in the flickering light of the torches, Saul throws his spear. David moves just in time, the weapon embedding itself in the wall where he had been standing. A heartbeat later, and he would have been dead. He looks at Saul, sees the rage in his eyes, the fear disguised as power. He does not fight back. He flees. Now, David is no longer a hero. He is an outlaw, a fugitive hunted by the very king he once served. He moves from place to place, seeking refuge, hiding in caves, the hills his only shelter. But he is not alone. Men begin to gather around him, the discontented, the desperate, those who have been cast aside. They come to him not as soldiers but as exiles, looking for a leader. And in the wilderness, David becomes something more than a warrior. He becomes a commander. Saul's pursuit is relentless. He sends spies, sends armies, marches into the wilderness himself, determined to erase David from existence. Twice, David has the chance to end it. Twice, he stands over Saul as the king sleeps, his own sword in his hands, the whispers of his men telling him to strike. But he does not. I will not lay my hand upon the Lord's anointed. Even in exile, even as a fugitive, David refuses to become what Saul has become. He will not take the throne by force. He will wait. He will trust. But Saul is not the only enemy David must face. The Philistines continue their war against Israel, pressing closer, stronger, ready to claim the land as their own. And Saul, weakened by fear and madness, can no longer lead his people. Twice, David has the chance to end it. Twice, he stands over Saul as the king sleeps, his own sword in his hands, the whispers of his men telling him to strike. But he does not. I will not lay my hand upon the Lord's anointed. Even in exile, even as a fugitive, David refuses to become what Saul has become. He will not take the throne by force. He will wait. He will trust. But Saul is not the only enemy David must face. The Philistines continue their war against Israel, pressing closer, stronger, ready to claim the land as their own. And Saul, weakened by fear and madness, can no longer lead his people. He turns to forbidden ways, seeking answers in the shadows, calling upon a witch to summon the ghost of the prophet Samuel. The vision is grim. Samuel tells him his fate. His reign is over. His sons will fall in battle. He will die. And then the final war begins. The Philistines strike hard, their armies overwhelming Israel's defenses. The battlefield is chaos, a storm of clashing swords and dying cries. Saul's sons fall one by one, Jonathan among them, the prince who once stood at David's side. Saul, wounded and alone, sees the end closing in. Rather than be taken by his enemies, he falls upon his own sword. The news spreads swiftly. The king is dead. David does not rejoice. He mourns. He tears his garments, weeps for Jonathan, for Saul, for the house that has fallen. Despite everything, despite the years of betrayal and pursuit, he never wanted it to end like this. But destiny does not wait. The people turn to him now, calling him to rule. First, Judah crowns him as their king, then all of Israel follows. He enters the city of Jerusalem not as a conqueror, but as a shepherd who has come home. His reign begins, but the battles do not end. David is a great king, a wise leader, but he is still a man. He is not perfect. He makes mistakes. One mistake, in particular, will haunt him for the rest of his life. Her name is Bathsheba. He sees her one evening from the rooftop of his palace. She is the wife of Uriah, a soldier loyal to him, a man who fights his battles. But desire takes hold, and David, who once followed the will of God without hesitation, takes what is not his. A child is conceived. A secret is born. And to hide his sin, David sends Uriah to the front lines of war, knowing he will not return. Uriah falls. David believes the matter is buried, forgotten, but the prophet Nathan comes to him with a parable, a story of a rich man who stole from the poor, a king who abused his power. David listens, angered by the injustice. Then Nathan turns to him. You are that man. The weight of his sin crashes down. David, the warrior, the king, the man who stood against giants and armies, crumbles. He falls to his knees, broken, knowing that he has become the very thing he once fought against. His repentance is real, but consequences follow. The child dies. His house is plagued with division. His sons rise against him, one after another, and David, though still a king, feels the weight of loss like never before. Years pass. Battles rage. His kingdom expands. But time is relentless. David grows old. He has won victories, he has conquered lands, but he has also buried friends, buried sons, buried pieces of himself along the way. He prepares for what comes next. He names his son Solomon as his successor, ensuring that the kingdom will not fall into chaos after him. And when his time comes, David does not fear. He has lived a life unlike any other, a shepherd turned king, a warrior turned ruler, a sinner turned believer. His story is not one of perfection but of faith, of failure and redemption, of the long and winding path that leads to destiny. His name will be remembered, not just in Israel, but in the echoes of history itself. David is more than just a shepherd, more than just a king. He is a man shaped by struggle, by faith, by triumph, and by failure. His story is not one of perfection, but of perseverance, of learning what it means to lead, to love, to lose, and to carry the weight of destiny. He begins as the youngest of 8 brothers, a boy who tends sheep while his older siblings fight wars. He is overlooked, dismissed, treated as insignificant. Even when the prophet Samuel arrives, looking for the next king, David is not even considered at first. Yet, when he stands before Samuel, something unseen marks him. Not his strength, not his size, but his heart. David's greatest trait is not his ability to fight, though he proves himself in battle. It is not his skill as a strategist, though he wins wars. It is his unshakable faith. When he hears Goliath's challenge, he does not see an impossible enemy. He sees a man defying God. He does not hesitate, not because he is fearless, but because his trust in God outweighs his fear. As he rises in Saul's court, he is not driven by ambition. He serves, he fights, he plays music to calm a troubled king. Even when Saul turns against him, when he becomes a fugitive, he refuses to take vengeance. He does not kill Saul, though he has the chance. He waits for the throne to come to him, not by force, but by God's will. But David is not without flaws. His greatest strength, his passion, his deep emotions, also becomes his weakness. His desire for Bathsheba leads him down a path of deceit, a path where he makes choices that haunt him. He takes another man's wife. He sends that man to his death. And for the first time, David does not face an enemy, but himself. Nathan's confrontation shatters him. This is the moment that defines him, not his victories, not his coronation, but his repentance. He does not deny his sin. He does not justify it. He falls to his knees and pleads for forgiveness. And though he pays a heavy price, losing his child, facing rebellion in his own house, he never turns away from God. Then there is Saul, the king who came before him, the man whose downfall mirrors David's rise. Saul begins as a chosen ruler, but fear consumes him. He disobeys, he doubts, and when he realizes that God has turned from him, he clings to power with desperation. Saul's relationship with David is one of the most tragic aspects of the story. At first, he welcomes the boy into his court, soothed by his music, impressed by his bravery. But as David's victories multiply, as the people's love shifts toward the young warrior, Saul's admiration twists into jealousy. He tries to kill David, not once, not twice, but relentlessly. Yet, what makes Saul's downfall so powerful is that he knows he has lost. He sees it in the way Jonathan loves David as a brother, in the way his own daughter defies him for David's sake, in the way even his soldiers whisper of David's greatness. Saul is fighting a battle he has already lost, yet he cannot stop himself. His final act, turning to a witch to summon Samuel's ghost, shows the depth of his despair. The man who was once chosen by God is now utterly alone. When he falls on his own sword, it is not just the death of a king, but the collapse of a man who could not let go of what was no longer his. Then there is Jonathan, Saul's son, the prince who should have seen David as a rival, but instead loved him as a brother. Jonathan's story is one of quiet tragedy. He recognizes that David is meant to be king. He knows that the throne, which should have been his, was never truly his to claim. Yet, rather than resent David, he protects him. Jonathan's loyalty is unwavering, even when it means defying his father. His love for David is pure, built not on politics, not on ambition, but on genuine brotherhood. He does not live to see David take the throne, but his name is forever bound to David's heart. When David mourns him, it is one of the most sorrowful moments in his life, not just because he has lost a friend, but because he knows Jonathan deserved more. Michal, Saul's daughter, is another figure caught between love and loyalty. She loves David, defends him against her father, risks everything to help him escape. But love is not enough to hold on to him. As time passes, as politics and power reshape their world, their relationship fractures. By the time David returns as king, Michal has become bitter, distanced from the man she once risked her life for. And then there is Bathsheba. She is more than just a temptation, more than just a woman caught in the desires of a king. She is a turning point in David's life. Through her, David experiences his greatest failure, but also his greatest lesson. She is not erased from his story, not cast aside after his repentance. She becomes the mother of Solomon, the son who will inherit the throne. Nathan, the prophet, stands as the voice of truth, the one who holds David accountable when no one else will. His confrontation with David is not just about punishment, it is about redemption. He does not condemn David to ruin, he shows him the path back to grace. David's children become a reflection of his own struggles. His son Absalom rebels against him, rising in defiance, forcing David into exile once more. This is a pain David never expected, not an enemy from the outside, but his own flesh and blood turning against him. Through it all, David remains a man of passion, of poetry, of deep feeling. He is a warrior, a ruler, a father, a flawed man who loves deeply and sins greatly, but always finds his way back. When his reign ends, he does not see himself as a god, as an untouchable legend. He sees himself as a servant of God, as a man who has lived and lost and loved and learned. His name endures, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. In the heart of Greece's ancient landscapes, the production of House of David unfolded, weaving together a tapestry of fascinating behind-the-scenes stories and intriguing trivia that rival the epic narrative portrayed on screen. The journey began with director Jon Erwin's lifelong fascination with the biblical figure of King David. This passion ignited during his youth, leading him to pen the initial script as a teenager after visiting King David's tomb in Jerusalem. This early inspiration laid the foundation for a project that would come to fruition years later, culminating in the creation of the television series. Casting the titular role of David was a monumental task that spanned 4 months. The production sought an actor who could embody the complexity and depth of this iconic character. Michael Iskander, a newcomer with a background in theater, emerged as the perfect fit. His prior experience in athletics, particularly in shot put and discus during high school, lent authenticity to the physically demanding role. This casting choice marked Iskander's first major acting credit, propelling him into the spotlight. Portraying Goliath required an actor of formidable presence. British bodybuilder and actor Martin Ford, standing at 6 feet 8 inches and weighing 320 pounds, was cast to embody the giant warrior. Through a combination of forced perspective and digital enhancements, Goliath's on-screen height was amplified to an imposing 9 feet 9 inches, creating a visually striking antagonist. The series also featured Suliman as King Saul, Ayelet Zurer as Queen Ahinoam, and Stephen Lang as the prophet Samuel. Each actor brought a unique perspective to their roles, enriching the narrative with nuanced performances. Filming primarily took place in Greece, utilizing the country's rich historical architecture and landscapes to authentically depict ancient Israel. Locations such as Kappa Studios in Sparta, the ancient city of Messene, and the old town of Nafplio provided immersive backdrops. Additionally, the production ventured to Calgary, Alberta, where the expansive terrains of CL Western Town and Backlit offered versatile settings for various scenes. The decision to film in Greece was not merely for aesthetic authenticity but also for practical advantages. The country's diverse landscapes and historic sites allowed the production to recreate ancient Israel with remarkable accuracy. This choice also provided financial benefits, as Greece offered favorable tax incentives for filmmakers, enabling the production to allocate resources effectively. Behind the camera, the production faced numerous challenges, from coordinating large-scale battle scenes to ensuring historical accuracy in set designs and costumes. The crew meticulously researched ancient Israelite culture, consulting with historians and scholars to recreate the period authentically. This dedication extended to the smallest details, such as the design of pottery and textiles, ensuring that every aspect of the production resonated with historical truth. The music for the series was composed by Kevin Kiner and his children, Sean and Deanna Kiner. Their composition blended traditional Middle Eastern instrumentation with contemporary orchestral elements, aligning with the historical setting while appealing to modern audiences. This musical fusion enriched the storytelling, adding emotional depth to pivotal scenes. One of the most challenging sequences to film was the iconic battle between David and Goliath. The production employed a combination of practical effects and CGI to depict the size disparity between the two characters. Martin Ford's imposing physicality was further enhanced through digital effects, creating a seamless and believable confrontation that became a centerpiece of the series. The series aimed to present a nuanced depiction of King David by combining scriptural narratives with creative storytelling. Co-created and directed by Jon Erwin and Gunn, both known for their work in faith-based cinema, the series sought to make the biblical story relatable to contemporary audiences. Drawing primarily from the early chapters of 1 Samuel, the narrative followed David's transformation from a shepherd to a central figure in Israel's history, exploring his relationships with key figures such as King Saul and the prophet Samuel. The writing process involved integrating direct biblical references with original dialogue, developing subplots that provided depth to secondary characters, including Saul, Michael, and Jonathan. It also delved into David's internal struggles with faith, morality, and leadership, extending beyond his well-documented battles and victories. The series intended to be faithful to the Hebrew Bible, but not necessarily a strict retelling of the biblical account of David. Jewish and Christian scholars were consulted in writing the script to ensure cultural and historical accuracy. One of the challenges in writing the series was crafting dialogue that felt authentic to the historical setting while remaining accessible to modern audiences. The series intended to be faithful to the Hebrew Bible, but not necessarily a strict retelling of the biblical account of David. Jewish and Christian scholars were consulted in writing the script to ensure cultural and historical accuracy. One of the challenges in writing the series was crafting dialogue that felt authentic to the historical setting while remaining accessible to modern audiences. To achieve this balance, the writers adopted a formal yet naturalistic style, avoiding overly archaic language. The creators emphasized that the show was intended for a broad audience, not just religious viewers, drawing inspiration from epic sagas like The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter. The production's commitment to authenticity extended to the depiction of ancient warfare. The crew collaborated with historians to accurately portray battle strategies, weaponry, and military formations of the time. This meticulous attention to detail ensured that the action sequences were both thrilling and historically grounded. The series also explored the political dynamics of ancient Israel, highlighting the complexities of Saul's reign and David's rise to power. The portrayal of court intrigues, alliances, and betrayals added layers of depth to the narrative, offering viewers a comprehensive understanding of the era's socio-political landscape. The production faced logistical challenges, particularly when filming large-scale scenes involving numerous extras. Coordinating these sequences required meticulous planning and execution, ensuring that each element contributed to the overall authenticity of the series. The series received praise for its production values and faithfulness to the biblical narrative. Audiences and critics alike lauded the performances, particularly Michael Iskander's portrayal of David, which captured the character's evolution from shepherd to king with emotional depth and complexity. In its first week, the series reached number 2 on Prime Video's most-watched list, reflecting its widespread appeal and the successful execution of its ambitious vision. The journey of bringing House of David to life was marked by a confluence of passion, dedication, and meticulous craftsmanship. From the initial spark of inspiration to the final cut, the production navigated challenges and embraced opportunities to authentically portray one of history's most enduring narratives. Through the collaborative efforts of a diverse and talented team, the series not only captured the essence of the biblical story but also resonated with contemporary audiences, solidifying its place as a landmark in modern television storytelling. The story of House of David is not just about a shepherd who becomes a king. It is a profound meditation on power, destiny, faith, and the human condition. Every significant event in the film serves as a piece of this intricate puzzle, weaving together themes of divine intervention, personal sacrifice, and the struggle between righteousness and human frailty. These moments are not just markers of the story's progression. They are the emotional and thematic anchors that define its impact. From the very beginning, the film establishes a world that is both harsh and deeply spiritual. David's introduction as a shepherd boy, overlooked by his own family, is a powerful statement about how greatness is often hidden in the most unexpected places. His anointing by Samuel is not a grand spectacle but an intimate, almost quiet moment, one that carries the weight of destiny. It is a moment that speaks to one of the film's core themes, the idea that true strength is not in appearance or status but in the heart. Saul, on the other hand, represents the tragic side of divine selection. He was once chosen, once the embodiment of Israel's hope, but his disobedience and insecurity have led him to a place of fear and instability. His downward spiral is one of the film's most compelling character arcs. He does not simply become evil. He is consumed by his own inadequacy, by the knowledge that he is no longer God's chosen. The tension between Saul and David is not just political. It is deeply psychological and emotional. Saul sees in David what he once was, and that reflection is unbearable. One of the most critically significant scenes in the film is David's battle with Goliath. While the event itself is well known, its presentation in House of David is masterfully layered with meaning. The sheer size of Goliath, exaggerated through clever cinematography and digital effects, creates a visual representation of the impossible odds David faces, not just in this battle, but in his life. The slow build-up to the moment of confrontation allows the audience to feel the weight of Israel's fear, the silence before the storm. When David refuses Saul's armor, it is not just a strategic decision, it is a declaration of identity. He will not fight as a warrior of men, but as a servant of God. The moment David's stone strikes Goliath, the film captures something beyond victory. The way the camera lingers on the fallen giant, the way the battlefield holds its breath before erupting into chaos, it is not just a triumph of strength but a shift in power, the beginning of something much larger. This is the moment David becomes more than a shepherd. It is also the moment Saul's reign truly begins to unravel as David rises in Saul's court. The film presents one of its most delicate and heartbreaking dynamics, the relationship between David and Jonathan. The two men are bound by an unbreakable friendship, yet their paths are set in opposition. Jonathan, as Saul's son, should be David's rival, yet he becomes his greatest ally. The tragedy of Jonathan's loyalty is that he is caught between love for his father and recognition of David's destiny. Their final moments together, when Jonathan acknowledges David as Israel's future, carry an immense emotional weight, because they both know that Saul will not allow David to live. Saul's increasing paranoia is another highlight of the film's critical exploration of power. His attempts on David's life are not impulsive acts of madness. They are calculated moves by a man who knows he is losing everything. Each failed assassination attempt escalates the tension, pushing David further into exile and pushing Saul further into the darkness of his own mind. One of the most powerful moments is when Saul, in his desperation, turns to a witch to summon the spirit of Samuel. The scene is chilling, not just for its supernatural elements but for what it reveals about Saul's despair. He has fallen so far that he seeks answers from the dead. And the answer he receives is his doom. David's years in exile are not just about survival but about transformation. He gathers men around him, not soldiers, but outcasts, the broken, the unwanted. These men become his army, not because of conquest but because they believe in him. The contrast between Saul's crumbling kingdom and David's growing force is stark. The film does not rush this period. It allows the audience to see David's leadership, his struggles, and his moments of doubt. Twice, David has the chance to kill Saul, and twice, he refuses. He gathers men around him, not soldiers, but outcasts, the broken, the unwanted. These men become his army, not because of conquest but because they believe in him. The contrast between Saul's crumbling kingdom and David's growing force is stark. The film does not rush this period. It allows the audience to see David's leadership, his struggles, and his moments of doubt. Twice, David has the chance to kill Saul, and twice, he refuses. These moments are vital because they define the kind of king David will be. In lesser hands, these scenes could have been simple displays of mercy, but here, they are layered with tension and inner conflict. David is not just sparing Saul. He is resisting the temptation to take power by force. The weight of destiny is heavy, but he will not claim it before its time. The climax of Saul's story is inevitable yet devastating. The battle against the Philistines is brutal, chaotic, and unrelenting. Jonathan's death is a crushing blow, not just for David, but for the audience. Saul's final act, falling on his own sword, is the culmination of a man who has lost everything, not just his kingdom, but himself. The film does not portray this moment as justice, but as tragedy. Saul was once chosen, and now he is gone. David's ascent to the throne should feel like a victory, but the film wisely does not treat it as a simple triumph. He is not the same shepherd who played the harp in Saul's court. He is a man who has fought, who has lost friends, who carries the weight of those he could not save. His coronation is a moment of fulfillment, but also of foreshadowing, because his greatest trials are still ahead. The story does not end with victory. David's rule is not without flaw. The moment he sees Bathsheba, the film shifts. This is not a story of external enemies anymore. It is a battle within. David, who has resisted temptation, who has spared his enemies, who has followed God's will, now becomes the very kind of man he once stood against. The affair, the deception, the murder of Uriah, these are not just sins, they are betrayals of everything he once believed. Nathan's confrontation with David is perhaps the most emotionally charged moment in the film. He does not accuse David outright. Instead, he tells him a story, a parable of a rich man stealing from the poor. And when David, in his anger, declares that such a man deserves to die, Nathan's words strike like a hammer. "You are that man." The silence that follows is deafening. It is not just a revelation, it is a reckoning. David's repentance is genuine, but the consequences of his actions ripple through the rest of his life. The loss of his child, the rebellion of his own son, the fractures in his family, these are the wounds that do not heal. The film does not shy away from the reality that even great men are flawed, that even those chosen by God can falter. By the time David reaches the end of his life, he is not the triumphant warrior he once was. He is older, wearier, filled with memories of both glory and regret. He has won battles, built a kingdom, left a legacy, but he has also buried too many loved ones. When he names Suliman as his successor, there is relief, but also sorrow. His story is complete, but the weight of it remains. What makes House of David resonate so deeply is that it does not portray its characters as untouchable legends. It presents them as real, as flawed, as struggling with the same questions of purpose, power, and morality that we face today. It is a story about kings and wars, but more than that, it is a story about choices, about faith, about the consequences of ambition and the cost of destiny. The impact of the film is undeniable. It is not just a retelling of an ancient story, it is a reflection of human nature, timeless and universal. The film lingers in the mind, not because of its grandeur, but because of its truth. It is a reminder that greatness is not about never failing, but about rising after the fall. In the heart of Greece's ancient landscapes, the production of House of David unfolded, weaving together a tapestry of fascinating behind-the-scenes stories and intriguing trivia that rival the epic narrative portrayed on screen. The journey began with director Jon Erwin's lifelong fascination with the biblical figure of King David. This passion ignited during his youth, leading him to pen the initial script as a teenager after visiting King David's tomb in Jerusalem. This early inspiration laid the foundation for a project that would come to fruition years later, culminating in the creation of the television series. Casting the titular role of David was a monumental task that spanned 4 months. The production sought an actor who could embody the complexity and depth of this iconic character. Michael Iskander, a newcomer with a background in theater, emerged as the perfect fit. His prior experience in athletics, particularly in shot put and discus during high school, lent authenticity to the physically demanding role. This casting choice marked Iskander's first major acting credit, propelling him into the spotlight. Portraying Goliath required an actor of formidable presence. British bodybuilder and actor Martin Ford, standing at 6 feet 8 inches and weighing 320 pounds, was cast to embody the giant warrior. Through a combination of forced perspective and digital enhancements, Goliath's on-screen height was amplified to an imposing 9 feet 9 inches, creating a visually striking antagonist. The series also featured Suliman as King Saul, Ayelet Zurer as Queen Ahinoam, and Stephen Lang as the prophet Samuel. Each actor brought a unique perspective to their roles, enriching the narrative with nuanced performances. Filming primarily took place in Greece, utilizing the country's rich historical architecture and landscapes to authentically depict ancient Israel. Locations such as Kappa Studios in Sparta, the ancient city of Messene, and the old town of Nafplio provided immersive backdrops. Additionally, the production ventured to Calgary, Alberta, where the expansive terrains of CL Western Town and Backlit offered versatile settings for various scenes. The decision to film in Greece was not merely for aesthetic authenticity but also for practical advantages. The country's diverse landscapes and historic sites allowed the production to recreate ancient Israel with remarkable accuracy. This choice also provided financial benefits, as Greece offered favorable tax incentives for filmmakers, enabling the production to allocate resources effectively. Behind the camera, the production faced numerous challenges, from coordinating large-scale battle scenes to ensuring historical accuracy in set designs and costumes. The crew meticulously researched ancient Israelite culture, consulting with historians and scholars to recreate the period authentically. This dedication extended to the smallest details, such as the design of pottery and textiles, ensuring that every aspect of the production resonated with historical truth. The music for the series was composed by Kevin Kiner and his children, Sean and Deanna Kiner. Their composition blended traditional Middle Eastern instrumentation with contemporary orchestral elements, aligning with the historical setting while appealing to modern audiences. This musical fusion enriched the storytelling, adding emotional depth to pivotal scenes. One of the most challenging sequences to film was the iconic battle between David and Goliath. The production employed a combination of practical effects and CGI to depict the size disparity between the two characters. Martin Ford's imposing physicality was further enhanced through digital effects, creating a seamless and believable confrontation that became a centerpiece of the series. The series aimed to present a nuanced depiction of King David by combining scriptural narratives with creative storytelling. Co-created and directed by Jon Erwin and Gunn, both known for their work in faith-based cinema, the series sought to make the biblical story relatable to contemporary audiences. Drawing primarily from the early chapters of 1 Samuel, the narrative followed David's transformation from a shepherd to a central figure in Israel's history, exploring his relationships with key figures such as King Saul and the prophet Samuel. The writing process involved integrating direct biblical references with original dialogue, developing subplots that provided depth to secondary characters, including Saul, Michael, and Jonathan. It also delved into David's internal struggles with faith, morality, and leadership, extending beyond his well-documented battles and victories. The series intended to be faithful to the Hebrew Bible, but not necessarily a strict retelling of the biblical account of David. Jewish and Christian scholars were consulted in writing the script to ensure cultural and historical accuracy. One of the challenges in writing the series was crafting dialogue that felt authentic to the historical setting while remaining accessible to modern audiences. To achieve this balance, the writers adopted a formal yet naturalistic style, avoiding overly archaic language. The creators emphasized that the show was intended for a broad audience, not just religious viewers, drawing inspiration from epic sagas like The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter. The production's commitment to authenticity extended to the depiction of ancient warfare. The crew collaborated with historians to accurately portray battle strategies, weaponry, and military formations of the time. This meticulous attention to detail ensured that the action sequences were both thrilling and historically grounded. The series also explored the political dynamics of ancient Israel, highlighting the complexities of Saul's reign and David's rise to power. The portrayal of court intrigues, alliances, and betrayals added layers of depth to the narrative, offering viewers a comprehensive understanding of the era's socio-political landscape. The production faced logistical challenges, particularly when filming large-scale scenes involving numerous extras. Coordinating these sequences required meticulous planning and execution, ensuring that each element contributed to the overall authenticity of the series. The series received praise for its production values and faithfulness to the biblical narrative. Audiences and critics alike lauded the performances, particularly Michael Iskander's portrayal of David, which captured the character's evolution from shepherd to king with emotional depth and complexity. In its first week, the series reached number 2 on Prime Video's most-watched list, reflecting its widespread appeal and the successful execution of its ambitious vision. The journey of bringing House of David to life was marked by a confluence of passion, dedication, and meticulous craftsmanship. From the initial spark of inspiration to the final cut, the production navigated challenges and embraced opportunities to authentically portray one of history's most enduring narratives. Through the collaborative efforts of a diverse and talented team, the series not only captured the essence of the biblical story but also resonated with contemporary audiences, solidifying its place as a landmark in modern television storytelling. The world of House of David is vast, ancient, and deeply immersive. Every stone, every desert path, every flickering torch in the shadows tells a story. This is not just a backdrop for a biblical epic, it is a world built to breathe, to feel alive, to pull the audience into a time long past and make it tangible. The setting is not just scenery, it is a character in its own right, shaping the lives of those who walk its lands. The story begins in the rolling hills of Bethlehem, a place that seems untouched by the great struggles of the world. The golden sunlight bathes the pastures where David tends his sheep, the wind whispers through the tall grass, and there is a sense of peace, a world small, simple, and isolated from the turmoil of kings and war. This setting reflects who David is at the start. Innocent, unburdened, a boy whose greatest worry is protecting his flock. The cinematography in these moments is warm, gentle, with soft focus and lingering shots that let the audience settle into the rhythm of David's quiet life. But beyond Bethlehem, the world is anything but peaceful. Saul's kingdom stands in stark contrast, a place of rigid stone walls, grand halls filled with torches that cast long shadows, a fortress that should feel secure but instead carries a sense of unease. The camera angles in these scenes are often tighter, more controlled, reflecting Saul's growing paranoia, the feeling that the walls around him are closing in. Light and shadow play a crucial role here. The deeper Saul falls into fear and doubt, the darker and more oppressive his surroundings become. His throne room, once a place of authority, begins to feel like a prison. Then there is the battlefield, where the fate of nations is decided. The valley of Elah, where David faces Goliath, is vast and open, yet the way it is filmed creates a sense of claustrophobia. Goliath dominates the frame, his size making the valley feel smaller, his presence making the air heavier. The camera lingers on the fear in the eyes of Saul's soldiers, capturing their hesitation, their silent prayers for someone else to step forward. But when David steps into the frame, everything changes. The camera, once focused on the looming threat of Goliath, now shifts to the determination in David's stance. The valley, once a place of fear, becomes a place of transformation. And when the stone flies, when the giant falls, the silence that follows is more powerful than any battle cry. The wilderness becomes David's next home, and here, the cinematography shifts once again. The caves, the deserts, the hidden corners of the land become his refuge, but they are not kind. The lighting is harsh, the landscapes vast and unforgiving. David is no longer the shepherd in the warm fields of Bethlehem. He is an exile, a fugitive, running through an environment that mirrors his isolation. The wide shots emphasize his smallness, his vulnerability, while the close-up shots reveal the weariness in his eyes. The wilderness is where he learns not just how to survive, but how to lead. Within these same landscapes, David's army takes shape, not in the halls of a palace, not in the grand halls of kings, but in the shadows of caves, in the hidden valleys where the outcasts of Israel gather. The cinematography here reflects this sense of rebellion, of movement, of something growing in the darkness that no one yet sees. The use of fire in these scenes is intentional. Campfires flickering against the cave walls, torches held by men who once had nothing but now have a purpose. The fire symbolizes something beyond warmth or light. Within these same landscapes, David's army takes shape, not in the halls of a palace, not in the grand halls of kings, but in the shadows of caves, in the hidden valleys where the outcasts of Israel gather. The cinematography here reflects this sense of rebellion, of movement, of something growing in the darkness that no one yet sees. The use of fire in these scenes is intentional. Campfires flickering against the cave walls, torches held by men who once had nothing but now have a purpose. The fire symbolizes something beyond warmth or light. It is the burning ember of a kingdom rising. But perhaps the most haunting setting of all is Endor, where Saul, in his final act of desperation, seeks a forbidden truth. The scene is shrouded in mist, the air thick with something unspoken, the witches dwelling a place that feels outside of time, outside of the laws of men and God alike. The cinematography here is slow, deliberate, with shadows that seem to stretch unnaturally, making Saul appear smaller, lost, already doomed. When the ghost of Samuel appears, it is not in a grand theatrical way, but in a way that feels inevitable, like a whisper carried by the wind that turns into a storm. Saul is not just hearing his fate, he is standing in the presence of the end. When David finally rises to the throne, the visual storytelling takes another shift. Jerusalem, the city of kings, is not presented as a place of absolute triumph. The cinematography does not lean into overwhelming grandeur. Instead, it focuses on the weight of the moment. David enters not as a conqueror, but as a man who has seen too much, lost too much. The palace is vast, but its halls feel empty. The throne is golden, but David's expression does not reflect victory, it reflects responsibility. The wide-angle shots make the throne room feel more like a burden than a reward, reminding the audience that David's journey is far from over. The scene of David and Bathsheba takes place in a setting unlike any other in the film. It is a place of beauty, of indulgence, where the night air is filled with the scent of jasmine and the gentle sound of water. It is a stark contrast to the harsher, war-torn landscapes David has known. But beauty can be deceptive, and this moment is not one of peace, but of temptation. The camera does not rush, it lingers, capturing the hesitation, the unspoken tension. And when David makes his choice, the air seems to change. What was once a place of serenity becomes a place of consequence. The aftermath of David's choices plays out in his own house, where the once golden halls now feel cold. Light no longer filters in the same way. Shadows fall differently. The throne, which once felt too large, now seems to loom over him, reminding him of what he has lost. When Nathan confronts him, the setting becomes almost suffocating. The walls close in, the room darkens, as if the very space around him is demanding he face the truth. David, the warrior, the king, The man who has stood against giants and armies is now trapped in a battle against himself. Years pass, and David ages. The golden light of Bethlehem is a distant memory. The fields where he once ran are now seen in flashbacks, but the light is softer, almost as if viewed through a haze. The city of Jerusalem remains, but it does not feel like the same place it once was. It is not just the land that has changed. It is David. And finally, in his last moments, the setting changes once more. There is no grand throne room, no battlefield, no temple built in his honor. There is only a quiet space, where the weight of his life settles upon him. The camera does not focus on the kingdom he built, but on the man he has become. His final moments are not about power, not about victory, but about reflection. The shepherd who became a king, the boy who faced giants, the ruler who fell and rose again. The last shot is not of the throne, nor the city, nor the battlefield. It is of David, looking out at the world one last time, the golden light of his youth returning for a moment, before fading into the wind. The settings in House of David are more than locations. They are echoes of emotion, mirrors of character, silent narrators that tell a story beyond words. They evolve with the journey, changing as David changes, breathing as he breathes. And in the end, they remind the audience of something eternal, that no matter how vast a kingdom may be, it is the journey of the soul that truly defines a life. In the heart of Greece, amidst ancient ruins and timeless landscapes, the production of House of David unfolded, a journey as epic and intricate as the biblical tale it sought to portray. The endeavor was not merely about recreating a story. It was about breathing life into a world long past, with all its complexities, challenges, and unexpected moments of joy. The inception of this ambitious project traced back to director Jon Erwin's youth. At 16, a visit to King David's tomb in Jerusalem ignited a passion that would smolder for years. Erwin's fascination with the Shepherd King's narrative became a guiding star in his filmmaking journey, culminating decades later in the realization of House of David. Casting the titular role was a quest in itself. The team sought an actor who could embody David's multifaceted persona: warrior, poet, leader, and flawed man. After an exhaustive search, they discovered Michael Iskander, a theater actor whose physicality and depth resonated with the character's essence. Iskander's athletic background, particularly in shot put and discus, lent authenticity to David's warrior spirit. This role marked Iskander's first major screen appearance, propelling him into a challenging yet rewarding spotlight opposite him. The formidable Goliath required an actor of imposing stature. British bodybuilder and actor Martin Ford, standing at 6 feet 8 inches and weighing 320 pounds, was cast to bring the giant to life. Through a blend of forced perspective and digital enhancements, Ford's Goliath towered at an awe-inspiring 9 feet 9 inches, creating a visually arresting presence that loomed large over the narrative. The ensemble cast featured talents like Suliman as King Saul, Ayelet Zurer as Queen Ahinoam, and Stephen Lang as the prophet Samuel. Each brought a unique perspective to their roles, enriching the tapestry of the story with nuanced performances. Filming primarily in Greece, the production utilized the country's rich historical architecture and landscapes to authentically depict ancient Israel. Locations such as Kappa Studios in Sparta, the ancient city of Messene, and the old town of Nafplio provided immersive backdrops. Additionally, the production ventured to Calgary, Alberta, where the expansive terrains of CL Western Town and Backlit offered versatile settings for various scenes. The decision to film in Greece was not merely for aesthetic authenticity but also for practical advantages. The country's diverse landscapes and historic sites allowed the production to recreate ancient Israel with remarkable accuracy. This choice also provided financial benefits, as Greece offered favorable tax incentives for filmmakers, enabling the production to allocate resources effectively. Behind the camera, the production featured talents like Michael Iskander, a theater actor whose physicality and depth resonated with the character's essence. This role marked Iskander's first major screen appearance, particularly in shot put and discus, filming primarily in Greece, the production utilized the country's rich historical architecture and landscapes to authentically depict ancient Israel. Behind the camera, the production faced numerous challenges, from coordinating large-scale battle scenes to ensuring historical accuracy in set designs and costumes. The crew meticulously researched ancient Israelite culture, consulting with historians and scholars to recreate the period authentically. This choice also provided financial benefits, as Greece offered favorable tax incentives for filmmakers, enabling the production to allocate resources effectively. Behind the camera, the production faced numerous challenges, from coordinating large-scale battle scenes to ensuring historical accuracy in set designs and costumes. The crew meticulously researched ancient Israelite culture, consulting with historians and scholars to recreate the period authentically. This dedication extended to the smallest details, such as the design of pottery and textiles, ensuring that every aspect of the production resonated with historical truth. The music for the series was composed by Kevin Kiner and his children, Sean and Deanna Kiner. Their composition blended traditional Middle Eastern instrumentation with contemporary orchestral elements, aligning with the historical setting while appealing to modern audiences. This musical fusion enriched the storytelling, adding emotional depth to pivotal scenes. One of the most challenging sequences to film was the iconic battle between David and Goliath. The production employed a combination of practical effects and CGI to depict the size disparity between the two characters. Martin Ford's imposing physicality was further enhanced through digital effects, creating a seamless and believable confrontation that became a centerpiece of the series. The series aimed to present a nuanced depiction of King David by combining scriptural narratives with creative storytelling. Co-created and directed by Jon Erwin and Gunn, both known for their work in faith-based cinema, the series sought to make the biblical story relatable to contemporary audiences. Drawing primarily from the early chapters of 1 Samuel, the narrative followed David's transformation from a shepherd to a central figure in Israel's history, exploring his relationships with key figures such as King Saul and the prophet Samuel. The writing process involved integrating direct biblical references with original dialogue, developing subplots that provided depth to secondary characters, including Saul, Michael, and Jonathan. It also delved into David's internal struggles with faith, morality, and leadership, extending beyond his well-documented battles and victories. The series intended to be faithful to the Hebrew Bible, but not necessarily a strict retelling of the biblical account of David. Jewish and Christian scholars were consulted in writing the script to ensure cultural and historical accuracy. One of the challenges in writing the series was crafting dialogue that felt authentic to the historical setting while remaining accessible to modern audiences. To achieve this balance, the writers adopted a formal yet naturalistic style, avoiding overly archaic language. The creators emphasized that the show was intended for a broad audience, not just religious viewers, drawing inspiration from epic sagas like The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter. The production's commitment to authenticity extended to the depiction of ancient warfare. The crew collaborated with historians to accurately portray battle strategies, weaponry, and military formations of the time. This meticulous attention to detail ensured that the action sequences were both thrilling and historically grounded. The series also explored the political dynamics of ancient Israel, highlighting the complexities of Saul's reign and David's rise to power. The portrayal of court intrigues, alliances, and betrayals added layers of depth to the narrative, offering viewers a comprehensive understanding of the era's socio-political landscape. The production faced logistical challenges, particularly when filming large-scale scenes involving numerous extras. Coordinating these sequences required meticulous planning and execution, ensuring that each element contributed to the overall authenticity of the series. The series received praise for its production values and faithfulness to the biblical narrative. Audiences and critics alike lauded the performances, particularly Michael Iskander's portrayal of David, which captured the character's evolution from shepherd to king with emotional depth and complexity. In its first week, the series reached number 2 on Prime Video's most-watched list, reflecting its widespread appeal and the successful execution of its ambitious vision. The journey of bringing House of David to life was marked by a confluence of passion, dedication, and meticulous craftsmanship. From the initial spark of inspiration to the final cut, the production navigated challenges and embraced opportunities to authentically portray one of history's most enduring narratives. Through the collaborative efforts of a diverse and talented team, the series not only captured the essence of the biblical story but also resonated with contemporary audiences, solidifying its place as a landmark in modern television storytelling. The world of House of David is built upon more than just ancient cities, war-torn battlefields, and the rise and fall of kings. Beneath the surface of its grand spectacle lies a deep well of themes and symbolism, woven seamlessly into every frame, every spoken word, and every choice its characters make. This is not just the story of a boy who became king. It is the story of destiny, of power, of faith, of betrayal, and of redemption. These themes shape the journey of David and those around him, mirroring the struggles of humanity itself. At the heart of the film lies the theme of divine selection versus human ambition. From the very beginning, David is chosen, not by men, but by God. His anointing by the prophet Samuel is quiet, almost hidden, but its weight is immeasurable. The moment the oil touches his head, David is transformed, not into a king, not into a warrior, but into a man marked by destiny. He does not seek power, it is thrust upon him. And yet, this divine selection does not immediately grant him a throne. He must suffer, must endure exile, must run for his life, while the one who was once chosen, Saul, clings desperately to a power that no longer belongs to him. Saul's unraveling is a stark contrast to David's rise. Where David embraces faith, Saul succumbs to fear. The throne becomes Saul's prison, his crown a burden that tightens around his mind with every passing day. This contrast is visually emphasized throughout the film. David, even in exile, is often shown in open landscapes, free beneath the vast sky, while Saul is framed in darkened corridors, confined within walls that seem to shrink around him. Power is not found in position, but in faith. This is the film's great irony. Saul sits on the throne, yet he is powerless, while David, wandering in the wilderness, is the true leader. One of the most striking symbols in the film is the harp. It is more than just an instrument. It is the sound of peace, the symbol of David's purity before he becomes entangled in war and politics. In Saul's court, David plays the harp, and for a time, it soothes the tormented king. It represents harmony, a connection to something greater than the chaos of the world. But as the story progresses, the sound of the harp fades. As David moves further into the path of war and kingship, the instrument that once defined his gentler spirit is heard less and less. By the time he reaches the height of his power, the music is gone entirely. It is only in his later years, after his sins and suffering, that the harp returns, signaling his reconciliation with God. Then there is Goliath, not just as a man, but as an idea. He is more than a giant. He is fear itself, the embodiment of every doubt and hesitation that holds people back. When he stands in the valley, he is not merely challenging Israel to a fight, he is challenging their faith, their courage, their very identity. And no one dares to face him. The soldiers of Saul's army see only his size, his armor, his overwhelming strength. But David does not see a giant. He sees a mortal man standing against God. The choice of David's weapon is another critical symbol. He rejects Saul's armor, refuses the sword, refuses to fight like a warrior. He chooses instead a sling, a weapon of a shepherd, a tool of someone who protects, not destroys. The moment the stone leaves his hand, it is not just a strike against Goliath. It is a declaration that faith can overcome fear. The battlefield itself transforms, going from a place of paralysis and terror to a place of triumph, simply because one boy dared to believe. Throughout the film, light and shadow play an essential role in reinforcing themes of divine favor and moral struggle. When David is anointed, the scene is bathed in warm golden hues, the light touching his face as if marking him for something greater. In contrast, Saul's descent into madness is always accompanied by growing darkness, by torches flickering uncertainly, by shadows creeping along the walls. The deeper he falls, the less light surrounds him, until his final moments in Endor, where he seeks guidance from the dead in a setting that feels cold, lifeless, a place utterly devoid of God's presence. Fire also serves as a powerful symbol in David's story. In battle, torches burn around him, their flames flickering wildly as swords clash. Fire represents the consuming force of war, of the destruction that comes with power. But in a later scene, when David watches the city of Jerusalem from his palace, the fire is contained, glowing steadily in the distance, a sign that he has become the ruler, but at a cost. He is no longer in the heart of battle, no longer standing against giants. The fires now burn because of his commands, not his courage. Then there is the rooftop, where David sees Bathsheba. It is a moment that changes everything, not because of its grandness, but because of its stillness. For the first time, David is not fighting. He is not running. He is not leading armies. He is at rest, at ease, and in that ease, he falters. The setting is beautiful. The city stretches out beneath him. The sky is clear. The night is peaceful. But beauty can be deceptive. The rooftop, a place of privilege, of power, becomes the place of his greatest failure. Water, too, is used with intention throughout the film. In his youth, David is often seen near streams, washing his face, drinking from the rivers, symbolizing purity and renewal. But after his fall, after the death of Uriah and the confrontation with Nathan, the absence of water becomes noticeable. The dryness of his soul, his distance from God, is reflected in the land around him. It is only when he repents, when he throws himself upon God's mercy, that the rain comes again. Perhaps the most haunting theme in the film is the weight of consequences. David, for all his greatness, does not escape suffering. The sins of his past do not simply vanish. They ripple through his life, through his children, through his kingdom. His son Absalom's rebellion is not just political. It is a reflection of David's own failures as a father, a ruler, a man. When he flees from his own city, barefoot, broken, the parallels to his youth in exile are unmistakable. But this time, he is not running from Saul. He is running from himself. And yet, even in his lowest moments, David remains a man after God's own heart. Unlike Saul, who never truly repents, David faces his failures, acknowledges them, seeks forgiveness. His journey is not one of unbroken success, but of falling and rising, of losing and regaining, of straying and returning. As the film nears its end, David's final moments are filled with quiet symbolism. He no longer stands in battle. He no longer sits on a grand throne, commanding armies. He is simply an old man, looking out over a kingdom that will outlive him. He sees the city of Jerusalem, the home he built, and he knows that his time has come. The final shot lingers on his face, aged but at peace. He has made mistakes. He has suffered. But he has never let go of his faith. That is the story of House of David. Not just a tale of power and victory, but of what it means to be human, to be chosen, to rise, to fall, and to seek redemption. It is a story that speaks not just of ancient kings, but of every heart that has ever struggled, ever strayed, ever sought its way back home. And that is why it endures in the realm of cinematic storytelling. The convergence of artistry and technology crafts experiences that resonate deeply with audiences. House of David, a 2025 biblical epic, exemplifies this fusion through its meticulous filmmaking techniques, which transport viewers into the ancient world of Israel's iconic king. The film's visual narrative is anchored in its strategic use of locations. Filmed extensively in Greece, the production capitalized on the country's historic architecture and landscapes to authentically depict ancient Israel. Sites such as Kappa Studios in Sparta, the ancient city of Messene, and the old town of Nafplio provided immersive backdrops that enriched the film's authenticity. Additionally, the expansive terrains of Calgary, Alberta, particularly at CL Western Town and Backlit, offered versatile settings for various scenes, enhancing the film's visual diversity. Cinematography plays a pivotal role in shaping the film's atmosphere. The use of natural lighting and wide-angle shots captures the vastness of the landscapes, reflecting the grandeur of David's journey. In contrast, intimate close-ups during personal moments convey the internal struggles of the characters, allowing audiences to connect deeply with their emotions. This deliberate contrast between expansive and intimate shots enhances the storytelling by mirroring the protagonist's external challenges and internal conflicts. Sound design and musical composition further immerse viewers into the narrative. The score, blending traditional Middle Eastern instrumentation with contemporary orchestral elements, aligns with the historical setting while appealing to modern audiences. This fusion enriches the storytelling, adding emotional depth to pivotal scenes and reinforcing cultural authenticity. Ambient sounds, such as the clashing of swords or the murmurs of a restless crowd, are meticulously layered to heighten tension and bring authenticity to the depicted era. Editing techniques are employed to maintain narrative pacing and emphasize thematic elements. The juxtaposition of parallel storylines, such as David's rise and Saul's decline, is achieved through cross-cutting, highlighting the contrasting paths of the characters. Montages depicting David's battles are interspersed with moments of reflection, illustrating the duality of his warrior spirit and poetic soul. This rhythmic editing approach ensures a cohesive flow, guiding viewers through the complex tapestry of the narrative. The film's color palette is carefully curated to reflect the evolving tone of the story. Warm, earthy hues dominate scenes of David's youth, symbolizing innocence and divine favor. As the narrative progresses into darker themes of betrayal and internal conflict, cooler tones and shadows permeate the visuals, mirroring the protagonist's tumultuous journey. This deliberate use of color enhances the emotional resonance of each scene, subtly guiding the audience's psychological engagement with the story. Practical effects and CGI are seamlessly integrated to recreate the ancient world and its monumental events. The iconic battle between David and Goliath employs a combination of practical effects and digital enhancements to depict the size disparity between the two characters. Martin Ford's imposing physicality as Goliath is further amplified through digital effects, creating a seamless and believable confrontation that serves as a centerpiece of the film. The film's production also navigated the evolving landscape of faith-based cinema. Supported by significant investments, House of David is part of a broader trend in Hollywood, where studios recognize the potential of religious-themed content to attract diverse audiences. This movement is bolstered by the success of shows like The Chosen and movies such as Jesus Revolution and Sound of Freedom, which have performed remarkably well at the box office. Filmmakers like Jon Erwin are leading this shift, transitioning from small-budget faith-based projects to more mainstream productions. The establishment of independent studios, such as the Wonder Project, co-founded by Erwin, reflects a commitment to producing high-quality content that appeals to both religious and non-religious audiences. The film's release strategy aligns with contemporary distribution models, leveraging streaming platforms to reach a global audience. Premiering on Prime Video, House of David is accessible to a vast subscriber base, reflecting the industry's adaptation to digital consumption trends. This approach not only broadens viewership but also accommodates diverse. In terms of box office performance, while specific figures are not detailed, the film's inclusion in discussions of anticipated releases and its presence on major streaming platforms indicate a positive reception. The strategic marketing and distribution efforts, coupled with the film's production quality, contribute to its commercial success within the competitive landscape of biblical epics. In summary, House of David exemplifies the harmonious blend of traditional storytelling and modern filmmaking techniques. Through thoughtful cinematography, sound design, editing, and strategic production choices, the film crafts an immersive experience that resonates with contemporary audiences while honoring its historical roots. This synthesis of artistry and technology not only brings the ancient tale to life but also cements its relevance in today's cinematic landscape. The story of House of David would not be as compelling without the performances that brought its characters to life. Each member of the cast stepped into their roles with dedication, transforming an ancient tale into something immediate, real, and deeply human. From the youngest shepherd to the tormented king, every actor carried the weight of their character's struggles, ambitions, and triumphs, making the biblical epic resonate with modern audiences. At the heart of the film is Michael Iskander as David, a role that required both physical intensity and deep emotional range. Stepping into the shoes of one of history's most complex figures was no small task. Iskander, relatively unknown before landing the part, poured himself into the role, training for months in combat techniques, horse riding, and biblical history. In interviews, he spoke about the challenge of embodying a man who was at once a warrior, a poet, a lover, and a leader. He described David's journey as one of great victories and devastating failures, a balance that he had to carry in every scene during filming. Iskander recalled moments where the weight of the story felt overwhelming. In particular, the battle with Goliath was physically and mentally exhausting. The scene took multiple days to film, with Iskander running through the valley under the scorching sun, delivering line after line while maintaining the raw energy of a boy facing a giant. But he admitted that it was the quieter moments that challenged him the most. David's heartbreak after losing Jonathan, his remorse when confronted by Nathan, his final moments as an aging king looking back on his life. Opposite him, Suliman delivered a haunting performance as King Saul. Suliman approached the role with a deep understanding of Saul's tragic arc. In interviews, he spoke about his desire to portray Saul not as a villain, but as a man consumed by his own demons. He worked closely with the director to ensure that every scene, especially those showing Saul's growing paranoia, captured the character's psychological descent. His scenes with Iskander crackled with tension, particularly in the moments where Saul wavered between seeing David as a son and as a threat. One of the most talked-about performances came from Martin Ford as Goliath. Towering over the cast at 6 feet 8 inches, Ford was the natural choice to embody the Philistine warrior. The film's special effects team enhanced his presence, using forced perspective and CGI to make him appear even larger on screen. Ford described the role as both thrilling and humbling, acknowledging that despite Goliath's physical dominance, he was ultimately defeated by something greater than strength. His battle sequence with Iskander was one of the most intense to film, requiring weeks of stunt coordination to ensure that every movement felt real while keeping both actors safe. Ayelet Zurer as Queen Ahinoam brought depth to a role often overlooked in biblical retellings. Her portrayal of Saul's wife was nuanced, showing the strain of living beside a man who was unraveling. In interviews, Zurer spoke about how she viewed Ahinoam as a silent observer of history, a woman who saw her husband's decline and her son's impossible position but was powerless to stop it. One of the standout performances was Stephen Lang as Samuel, the prophet who sets everything in motion. Lang, known for his commanding presence, brought a quiet intensity to the role, making Samuel a figure both revered and feared. He spoke about how playing Samuel required him to balance wisdom with sorrow. He was the man who anointed Saul, only to later strip him of his divine right and give it to another. Behind the scenes, the cast formed a strong bond, particularly during the grueling battle sequences. The film's training regimen was intense, with actors undergoing months of physical conditioning. Iskander, Ford, and Suliman trained in weapon combat, learning how to wield swords, spears, and slings with precision. The result was a level of realism that translated onto the screen, making every clash feel visceral and immediate. One of the most memorable moments on set came when the cast and crew filmed the anointing scene. Iskander later admitted that he felt an overwhelming sense of emotion when Samuel placed the oil on David's head, as if the gravity of the moment extended beyond the film itself. The set fell completely silent, a rare occurrence during filming, as everyone watched the scene unfold. The chemistry between Iskander and George Kasturos, who played Jonathan, was another highlight. Their friendship off-screen translated into one of the most heartfelt relationships in the film. Kasturos spoke about how he and Iskander spent hours discussing their characters' bond, ensuring that every moment of their friendship felt real. Their final scene together, when Jonathan acknowledges David's destiny, was one of the most emotional to film, with both actors admitting that they struggled to hold back tears even after the cameras stopped rolling. Audiences responded passionately to these performances, praising the film for its depth, its emotional honesty, and the commitment of its cast. Many viewers noted that they had expected a traditional biblical epic, but what they got was something far more human. Critics applauded Iskander's transformational performance, calling it a breakout role that captured David's contradictions, his strength and vulnerability, his faith and doubt, his triumphs and failures. Suliman's Saul was hailed as one of the most compelling portrayals of the character in film history, with reviews praising the way he made Saul sympathetic even at his most ruthless. The battle scenes received widespread acclaim, with many highlighting the realism and intensity of the David and Goliath fight. Audiences were drawn in by the way the camera captured every movement, making them feel the fear, the adrenaline, and the sheer impossibility of what David was attempting. But it was not just the action that resonated with audiences, it was the quiet moments. The scene where David mourns Jonathan, the moment he realizes his own sin with Bathsheba, the final conversation between an old David and his son Solomon. These were the moments that left people in silence as the credits rolled. Some viewers admitted they had gone into the film expecting a standard biblical adaptation, but came out deeply moved by the way the film explored human nature, destiny, and redemption. Others praised it for its willingness to show David as a flawed man rather than just a hero, making his journey feel even more profound. There were, of course, some critics. Some felt that the film took creative liberties with historical details, while others believed that certain dramatic moments were too cinematic, too stylized. But even among those critiques, there was an acknowledgement that the performances, the cinematography, and the storytelling were undeniably powerful. In its first week, House of David climbed to the top of streaming charts, reaching number 2 on Prime Video's most watched list. The film's success proved that faith-based epics still had a place in modern cinema, not just as religious films, but as stories that could captivate audiences of all backgrounds. As the dust settled, one thing became clear: House of David was more than just a film. It was an experience. From the cast's dedication to the emotional reactions of viewers, it stood as a testament to the power of storytelling, to the way history and humanity intertwine, and to the enduring legacy of a man who was more than a king. He was a story still being told. The journey of House of David is more than just a retelling of an ancient story. It is an experience that lingers, a film that transforms a biblical epic into a deeply human exploration of faith, power, loss, and redemption. Every frame, every battle cry, every whispered prayer beneath the stars builds a world that feels as real as the history it seeks to portray. From the shepherd's quiet pastures to the war-torn battlefields, from the grandeur of a king's palace to the loneliness of exile, the film takes us through the full arc of one man's rise, fall, and ultimate legacy. At the heart of the film is David, portrayed with breathtaking depth by Michael Iskander. His transformation from an innocent boy into a warrior, then into a king burdened by his own choices, is the soul of this story. Every triumph feels earned, every mistake feels deeply personal. The casting of David was no small feat, and Iskander's performance is one that will be remembered, not just for his strength in battle, but for the way he brings the quiet moments to life. David is not just a warrior or a king. He is a man, deeply flawed, yet still chosen. Opposite him stands Suliman as Saul, a ruler clinging to his fading power, unraveling under the weight of his own insecurities. The contrast between Saul and David is one of the most powerful aspects of the film. Saul, once chosen, now lost. David, once unknown, now rising. It is a tragedy in motion, a collision of fate and free will. The visual storytelling in House of David plays an equal role in immersing audiences in this ancient world. The cinematography shifts with David's journey, golden and warm in his youth, cold and shadowed in his exile, regal yet heavy in his kingship. The landscapes are vast, untamed, mirroring the unpredictable path of David's life. Light and darkness are used not just to illuminate scenes, but to reflect the shifting tones of destiny itself. It is not just a film, it is an unfolding painting, each frame a stroke that adds to the masterpiece. Sound and music breathe life into the story, carrying with them the echoes of ancient Israel. The score blends traditional Middle Eastern sounds with orchestral grandeur, making every battle more intense, every moment of sorrow more profound. The quiet strum of a harp is as powerful as the clash of swords, a reminder of the young shepherd boy who once played for a troubled king, and the man he eventually became. But what truly sets this film apart is its unwavering commitment to storytelling. It does not shy away from the harsh realities of David's journey. It does not paint him as a perfect hero, nor as a villain, but as something far more compelling, a man, chosen by God yet burdened by his own humanity. His greatest victories do not come from his battles, but from his choices. When he refuses to kill Saul, when he mourns Jonathan, when he falls to his knees in repentance after his greatest sin, these are the moments that define him. The film does not let us forget that power is not a prize, it is a burden. David's kingship is not the end of his journey, but the beginning of his struggles. His affair with Bathsheba, the rebellion of his own son, the consequences of his sins, they weigh on him more than any armor ever could. This is what makes his story so timeless, so painfully real. Audience reactions reflect the power of this storytelling. Many went into the film expecting a grand biblical epic and left feeling as if they had lived David's journey themselves. Critics praised the film's ability to balance spectacle with intimate character moments. The battle sequences were thrilling, but it was the quiet moments, the raw emotion in Iskander's eyes, the heartbreak in Suliman's performance, that left audiences speechless. The film's success in streaming and box office numbers confirmed what many already felt. It was a story that resonated across generations. Faith-based audiences embraced it for its biblical roots, while secular audiences were drawn to its universal themes of power, betrayal, and redemption. From a filmmaking perspective, House of David is a triumph of modern storytelling infused with ancient history. Every technical element, from cinematography to sound design, from CGI-enhanced battle sequences to the practical, handcrafted sets, served a single purpose: to make the story feel real. To pull us into David's world and make us believe we were walking beside him, through triumph and tragedy alike. In the end, this is more than just a film about a biblical king. It is a story about what it means to be human, about how even the most righteous can fall, about how even the greatest warrior can weep, about how, in the end, it is not the throne or the crown that defines a legacy, but the heart. And now we turn to you. What did you think of House of David? Did it live up to the legend? Did it surprise you, move you, challenge your perspective? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. And if you love deep dives into the best films of the year, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. There are more stories waiting to be explored, more journeys to take, and we'll be here for every single one of them. Until next time, remember, the greatest stories are the ones that live on in our hearts.